Let me start by just saying welcome and thank you for joining us. Thank you for taking time for yourself, I would hope, because really this is, Moshe and I are doing this in service of our community and one another. And we're grateful that you have chosen to discern what you might be able to do to show up with your best and highest self in spite of these crazy times we all find ourselves in. So if it's not self-evident, and it might not be from the picture on the screen versus the picture on your Zoom call, I'm Neville. And along with my friend and colleague, we are going to take an hour-and-a-half journey with you, a little staycation, and see if we can navigate these challenging times with some grace and some solutions to showing up in a way that would be authenticating our best and highest self. So again, if you're joining us and you're new to Zoom, if you wouldn't mind muting your mics, that would be awesome. Now try to do that, just scroll. Of ourselves and do it with some bio, as we said earlier, rated if you were listening in. I'd like to introduce Moshe to you, and Moshe will introduce me to you, but not through the conventional lens. So what you may know of Moshe is he's an author, he's a researcher, he's a marketeer, he's got many different hats he wears in his professional capacity. What you may not know is he actually is passionate about kirtan, which is a form of bhakti yoga, which is a yoga of devotion, where music is what inspires and enlivens your heart and soul and spirit. So I thought you might like to hear something unusual or something you wouldn't find on a bio or on your Google search or whatever on Moshe. So that's Moshe.
And Neville, many of you may know Neville. And he's one of these people who is as smart as he is wise. And I would summarize him as a community builder extraordinaire, really good at it and very committed to service. Something you may not know about Neville is he's a 7th degree black belt in karate. And in karate, the higher the number, the better. So that's quite advanced. And what did he tell me? His breakfast specialty is a curry, a Indian hot spicy egg dish,
which I'll be happy to share with anyone if they're so inclined and okay eating eggs. All right, so let's kind of lay the landscape out for you. The tell them what you're going to tell them, and tell them what you told them story. So our goal is to set the stage both personally as well as professionally. Give you some constructs that can help you hopefully re-examine and discern and how to make good choices about heart set, mindset, and skill sets. We're going to do a couple breakout sessions because it's not all about us. It's never all about us, and particularly in a pandemic and with the overlays of a social justice transition and difficulty we're experiencing as a culture. So we're going to get into a couple breakout sessions as professional, as personal, and we'll get to connect with other people that are on this call. Roughly 90 some people signed up, so you'll get to meet some hopefully inspiring and gifted people in your breakout sessions, roughly 4 to a group, and then we'll come back, debrief briefly, and then go back for a second session, shorter one, but in our world of work capacity. So whether you're actively working or retired or your avocational pursuits are your work, just how do we apply some of these principles and practices outside of our personal capacity? We kind of build this as a staycation because no one's going anywhere that I've noticed. So this is your check-in, and momentarily we'll do a check-in. And on the way out, whenever you have to leave, whether it's on the hour at 1 or if you can stay till the bitter end, feature, if you'd be so kind as to check out as well. And when you check out, you can leave your keys. You can also leave all your baggage. Just let it go, leave it with us. We'll dispose of it or recycle it or do what we can with it. But it's really an invitation to live authentically today, be brutally honest with yourself, because that's the beginning of self-reflection and self-correction. And then when you leave, hopefully you will leave with some new tools and mindset that will help you, navigate what purports to be a longer haul than any of us imagined or expected when this all came together. So that's the basic plan. And Moshe is going to tee it up a little bit of how we can get clear in the moment.
Yes, and we're really glad you're here. We know it's an odd time, and here we are looking at you in a little 1 by 1.5 inch rectangle. You all look fabulous. and you chose to make time for this, so we're really grateful that you're here. And this really is, we're all in this together, and this time has led to some ways of being together that we never expected. Who thought we'd be on calls like this? So for some of us, almost constantly, and where Zoom is a verb that we use regularly and with a whole different meaning. And we'll do our best to make it worth your time. We're not going to be, in spite of what it seems like so far, we will not be talking the whole time. This is very interactive, and we hope you'll interact by chatting, by stepping into the breakouts, and really participating. And we'll get this moving forward.
And so what inspired this? How the heck did we get here? So the COVID notwithstanding, we don't know how we got there with that, or we kind of sort of do. How we got here is Moshe and I were conversing and connecting and lamenting and pontificating, and decided, you know what, rather than just talk about it, let's do something. So really, we're here in the spirit of service. We're here because we recognize all of us did not expect what this to last as long as it has. We all know, both anecdotally, empirically, behaviorally, that stress over time leads to burnout. And so we want to provide an antidote for the fear, for the stress, for the dis-ease, and maybe with your help mobilize a different social epidemic of positivity, of connection, of love in the face of fear and uncertainty. And so that's the spirit behind why we're here. So first things first, until you know, like they say, the key in navigation to not getting lost is staying found. So we've got to start where we're at. And so again, using the chat feature as a way to connect with yourself, just take a moment and identify one word, one phrase that reflects where you find yourself in this moment. And don't overthink it. Just, you know, whatever's coming up for you right now, don't edit for television. Don't, you know, sanitize for popularity and likes on Facebook or your social media. Just put it out there, good, bad, ugly, indifferent, whatever it is. So we can take the pulse, take the temperature of the group and get a sense of where you're at. So just start. I see them all already coming in. So
yeah, beautiful.
Quite a range from blessed and grateful to confused, anxious,
busy, uncertain,
tranquil, present, peaceful, pensive. Cool. Well, as you can see the chat feature, if you're able to access that, and you should be, and if not, let us know, we'll try to help you. But there's not surprisingly, a huge range, right? And that's the thing about life, it's just so daily. In one moment, we can feel centered and like, I got this, have efficacy, agency, and a moment later, we can be in fear, uncertainty. And so I guess the opening invite is not just to periodically and habitually connect with yourself, but to also honor and dignify whatever you're feeling in the moment, because that's our starting point. We can't proceed from there if we don't know where we're at. So,
and we can see several themes emerging. There are people are either in this place, which is anxious, brittle, confused, words like that, or people are in another place, which is blessed and grateful. And then there's people in between who are feeling the heaviness and have hope for it to get better. So in this transition phase, and we'll see, and hopefully this session will uplift you a little bit and move that energy into a more positive space, because our goal is to refresh for all of us. Take a little bit of time, breathe deep, and refresh.
And by the way, for all of us that are zooming out, Zoom fatigue, this is not a bad thing to do with your teams or with your stakeholders periodically, to give them permission to also be authentic and be present, because otherwise we may just get into the functional or technical aspect of what our work is, our gathering is, and miss out on the social emotional connection that we so desperately need. And you'll hear a little bit more about our ABCs that comes out of Moshe's book, The Amari Wave, a little bit about an hour in, or 50 some minutes in, if we stay on schedule and don't lose our mind and drift off into wild yonders. So let's start by refreshing. So let's get present. Some of you already are, and thank you for that. And let's just take a moment to, wherever you find yourself, just bring ourselves into present. Just for 2 minutes, we're going to shift gears. We're going to, if you're comfortable, close your eyes. Assess and just check your physical posture and allow that to be one of grace. Maybe you feel grounded, relaxed, aware, centered, energized, or invite those qualities into this present moment awareness. As your physical body aligns, it creates conditions for your mental state to follow. So the fastest tool you have in your toolkit is your breath. It's always with you. Never leave home without it. So let's use the power of breathing right now, intentional breathing, which is typically unconscious, and make it conscious, make it intentional, make it purposeful. And breathing begins actually with the exhalation. So breathe out anything you don't want in this moment, whether that's stress, disease, frustration, confusion. Just breathe it out. Let it go. Give yourself permission to let it go in the out breaths. Let the HVAC system, wherever you are at, suck that out of your room and just eliminate it. So beginning with emptying, and then obviously the follow-up is the inhalation, the in-breaths, literally inspiring, breathing life into ourselves. And as you breathe in, just take a moment right now, again, without overthinking it, to say, what quality or qualities could I use in my life today, this moment? What qualities would I like to project and extend into my family, my loved ones, my community, my work, or any other stakeholder group that you cherish? And just sit for a moment, intentionally emptying and filling, getting rid of the unnecessary and drawing in the essential. If you can make those primal breaths, belly breaths, abdominal breaths, goes by many names, but take the breath deep down into your abdominal wall. When you empty out totally. The final piece of the breath is the retained breath, the naturally held breath. This is when the emptying, filling, and then there's the merging, becoming one with something, whatever quality or qualities you've chosen. So if you picked, I'd like a little more love in my life, a little less fear, empty out the fear, breathe in the love, and in the naturally held breath, become love. In you, around you, about you, throughout you, nothing but love. Just take a couple more breath cycles to anchor that emotion or quality that you've chosen right now. Emptying, filling, and merging. Whatever your belief system, whatever your higher knowing, whatever your deepest aspiration. Okay, when it's time, slowly open your eyes and see the world anew, and let's see how we can leverage that centering exercise for the balance of our time together.
Beautiful, Neville. Thank you. I felt good.
Good.
All right. So what we're focusing on is really discernment and how to keep the gift. And it's easy to focus on the negatives of this time, and they're significant. People are losing jobs, people are dying, people are confused, uncertain. There's a lot of stuff that make this a really difficult time. My wife Dana and I were listening to a Michael Franti concert about a week ago, and he was saying, we call these times different things: crazy, wild, hard. The most important word is important, because this time is ushering in these incredible opportunities for letting things that don't work go away and making space for new things. So there are gifts emerging even in the space of the hardship. And we want together to recognize, discern those gifts, and choose actively what to keep. So that's what this next piece is about.
So as we explore discernment, our first big idea for you guys is that we need to ask better questions, and ask questions from a place of strength rather than from deficit. So again, we all know or are familiar with this notion that our reptilian brain, that's completely wired for fight, flight, fear, flee, freeze, it's all about survival. And many of us, our reptilian brains have taken over, has hijacked our operating system. And one would argue, appropriately so. But since we have the capacity for discernment, our first big idea for you is to explore how we can then what might be going on. And as a result, by asking a better question, formulate a better response, because ideally we want our best selves to show up, especially in challenging times. So, for example, we'll take this first one, right? This is a pretty common question. Geez, you know, how come I'm not showing up the way I'd like to be showing up? How come I'm not as positive and productive as I'd like to be? How come and there's a gap. And so yes, gap analysis has a place, but our invitation to you is to actually ask a slightly higher order question, or a better formed question, so we can get to kind of, as Einstein said, you can't answer questions at the same level they were formulated. You need to you need to ask a better question. Invest more time in asking the better question, and that'll get you. Right. So deficit question would be, you know, why am I not doing what I should be doing, Neville, you dope? I can't believe you're so lame. And a higher order question is saying, so, well, that said, what am I doing well? What am I proud of what I'm doing well? In spite of now from March till July 30th, being in these crazy times, what am I doing well? So when we catch ourselves in that fear-based or deficit-based questioning, an invitation to you is to take a breath moments ago and reframe the question from a strengths-based or appreciative inquiry standpoint.
And you'll notice that it literally feels different in your body. And when you ask the why am I not doing better, we tend to diminish ourselves, we tighten up, and it creates this cycle of negative energy, and we can get into self-criticism and blame and judgment. And again, it's useful to want to be more positive and productive, but a hyper focus on that does not serve. So notice literally the feeling in your body when you shift from the not question, why am I not more positive and productive, to the what am I proud of and doing well. So who, and please do this by a show of hands, who can come up with something on the spot, you don't need to share it, that you are proud of and doing well? You can just raise your hand in your little image. All right, nice to see. So a lot of you are saying yes, and we want to amplify that. And we'll give a few more questions along the same lines that we hope will be helpful in terms of reframing. So these are the more deficit-based questions. Why am I not more positive and productive? What problems have come my way because of the damn pandemic? And how can I make things just like they were? I want to go back to exactly how things were. I don't like all this change. And again, we all slip into this, but with awareness, we can come out of it and shift to the more positive and productive questions. What am I proud of and doing well? Most of you raise your hand. Yes, I can think of something. What good has come my way? And a lot of people feel guilty for recognizing or celebrating good. Like, how can I be happy when times are so difficult? And to me, the answer is, how can you not? Why would you choose to invest in blocking that happiness if it's available? And what changes do you want to keep? Some good things have come your way. What do you want to keep? What do you want to nurture instead of letting them go as the pandemic winds down? Whenever that'll be. So this is shifting from the deficit-based questions to the asset-based questions. And just the questions alone can shift our energy.
And if you find yourself going, hey, that sounds pretty Pollyannish, that's magical thinking, I appreciate your, eternal optimism, get real, brother. This is now my felt experience in the moment. I'm not trying to minimize your felt experience. Even if you're only able to formulate a different question, you're already identifying for yourself the capacity to make a choice. So even if you can't actually answer what I'm proud of doing well, if you can actually even formulate the question, suggests your operating system has not been hijacked to the extent that no other options are available. So ideally, there's a moment of reflection. That reflection allows you to ask a higher order question. The higher order question leads you to a better, more productive and positive, sustainable response. But even if you don't get through that idealism, because who's ideal and who's perfect, the very notion that you can ask a different question suggests I still have some locus of control. I still have some choice. And much of our fear and much of our anxiety, much of our frustration, much of our burnout is a result of us feeling like I've got no choices.
Yes. And this reminds me, I want to mention a book that's coming out in a month or two that my good friend Jim Case, who's on this call, has written, called Fear is a Choice. It's about the illusion we let ourselves be in, that fear just happens and we can't choose. So I highly recommend it. It's available for pre-sale now. And that notion of choice is really, really germane to what we're talking about today. All right, Neville, we ready to keep going?
Yes, absolutely. So at the risk of you guys thinking that we're, again, magical thinking, we're going to actually confront that head on with some magic glasses and magic dust. And we want you to suspend your disbelief, even if it's only for, whatever, an hour and 9 more minutes or whatever on the call. And for the time being, create an invitation to yourself to suspend your disbelief. Let me back up a little bit. Some of you on this call are already going, look, I'm in, man. I'm prepared to ask better questions. I know that's in my best interest. I'm going to be of service to other people better. And others of you are like, I don't get it. It's sounding a little too, woo-woo for me, baby. So again, either wherever you stand on that continuum, we're going to just invite you to suspend your disbelief and put on those magic glasses and have some optimism for the future.
Yes, and it taps into what our good friend Albert Einstein did, which is a lot of thought experiments. So if this is a bit awkward and, as Neville said, too woo, just consider an experiment, a thought experiment. What happens if you try on magic glasses? And the magic glasses are there to help you shift your perspective. So just think of the glasses, and that can shift your energy. And the dust you can sprinkle on yourself or on others. So you can go around life with your hand moving out and just sprinkling dust on people. They may think you're nuts, but that's all right. You're helping them out. And that leads to our first breakout, which is about imagining. And this is the idea of moving to an aspirational state. And here, what we're imagining, and I hope we'll get some cheers from everyone for this, we're imagining that this pandemic is behind us. It's over. And it will be at some point. As the saying goes, it's always true, this too shall pass. And this pandemic will pass, even though we don't know when or how. It is inevitable that it will. So imagine that this pandemic is behind us. Literally try to move yourself into that space of imagining the pandemic is over. It's gone. And in its place is what you imagine. So in this exercise, we want you to think of what brought you joy. So you're looking backwards. This is retrospective. The pandemic's over. What brought you joy during the pandemic? Let's think back. I'll just pick a random time, say July 30th, 2020. And think about, in that time frame, what brought you joy? And how did you get it back when it was slipping away? How did you re-energize your spirit? How did you grow the love? So these are the questions we'd like you to focus on. Neville's going to put them into the chat window, and we're going to do a breakout now. So the breakouts will be about 4 people per group. It'll be for about 10 minutes. So we invite you to each take a couple minutes to answer the question. The introductions take about 2 minutes each to answer the questions, and then someone in your group can pull it all together. If you want to chat an insight or something of interest that came up, please do. So right now I'm going to turn on the breakout rooms, and you'll be whisked away magically with your magic glasses and your magic dust to this room. And we would like you to focus on these 3 questions, and then we'll come back together. All right, we'll keep going. So this was breakout number 1, focus on us as individuals and looking back retrospectively, imagining pandemic's over, it's a different time, and saying, how did we do it? How did we create positivity in our lives? And now that you've identified that, or identified ways to do that, or know the questions task, you can credit yourself for that and build on that. So that's our intent for the first part. Now we're going to move on to the next idea. So we've talked about love in our personal lives. And my assistant is asking for a moment of camera time. This is Zoe the Wonder Dog, who loves the pandemic because we are always home. She figures she got it made. So now we'll move on to the next piece, which is putting love to work. And by work, it doesn't necessarily mean an employed position. You can be retired, you can be a caregiver, you can do gardening. It's whatever you spend time doing. And how can we bring this love and recognize the good in that part of our lives as well? And the idea is we can move away from this nasty idea that business is war. We have to crush the competition. We have to capture market share. It's this predatory notion. It's the subject of a book I wrote, happen to have it right here, called The Amare Wave, Uplifting Business by Putting Love to Work. So it's been my focus for the last few years, and it's what I'm really committed to. And what I realized, and why I wrote the book, is I saw there was a lot of suffering in the work space, in the work world, especially in traditional business. And it's not necessary. We see companies doing really well, USAA, Trader Joe's, Patagonia, that have their own ways of putting love to work, and they're more profitable. So that's the idea here, is finding good changes that have resulted in the space of work that you've experienced as a customer or consumer. For example, USAA gave hundreds of millions of dollars in rebates back to members for auto insurance because people were driving less. And we see companies collaborating and innovating like we've never seen before, because there's an urgency and there's a coming together, a collective notion. It's Certainly not perfect, and there's a whole lot of divisiveness. But again, we're focusing on seeing and growing the good. There's this notion in life, some call it the law of attraction, that whatever we focus on grows. So our aim is to help focus on the positives. And one model that might be helpful, and this was a framework I put forward in the book, is I call it the ABCs. And A stands for authenticity. And authenticity creates this shared trust where you show up whole, you're respected for that, you respect yourself and others who see you for being you. And B stands for belonging. That's a sense of a shared identity. So I might say, for example, I'm a Trader Joe's fan. I see the similarities between me and Trader Joe's. And you'll have your own organizations you align with. It could be a sports team like the Golden State Warriors. It could be a religious institution. It could be a business, whatever it is. There's things we align. We're melding our personal brands with that of a company. And all that produces this collaboration. There's shared goals where we want companies to succeed. We don't want to see businesses going bankrupt. We want to help them succeed. We want to give them our money, and they want our lives to be better. So that's the notion of the ABCs: authenticity, belonging, collaboration. I was sharing this with a colleague recently who I hadn't seen in many months of the pandemic. Her name is Nora. And she said, "Grandpa, can you read me my very favorite story?" And I said, "Okay." And she challenged me with some existential stuff. It came across as sounds rather than words. But finally she said, "Yeah, I really like this stuff, especially the wave on the cover, because I went swimming in the ocean for my first time ever last week." So this has a lot of relevance, and it's for this future generation that we're doing this. And while it works for people our age, it's also the millennials among us and their children, like little Nora, who can really shift this world and emphasize the positive. So I mentioned the ABCs, and there are lots of other things you can do to see the positive, see the good in work, to focus on things like the golden rule, treating each other well, and taking a long-term view, and so on. Even during the pandemic, this can be done. So this takes us to our next group activity. Almost.
Yeah. No, it
first takes us back to Neville.
No, just briefly, just to set this up. So again, our aspiration was to give everyone a safe space, a brave space, maybe even a sacred space where we could be ourselves. It'd be to give us some recognition of the choices we have, to make choices between the stimulus and the response, as Viktor Frankl eminently, says in this quote. And God knows if anybody had an adverse circumstance in which to live and deal, and to come out of that with logos therapy, an entirely new framework for understanding reality and sense making of human psychology. If he can do that in a concentration camp, by golly, we should be able to do something with the space that we're in right now. And so again, this is underscoring that first big idea that we do have choice, and between the stimulus and the response, that gap, as the Brits say with the subway, mind the gap. In that gap, we have the capacity to choose. And in that gap, we can choose whether it's fear, whether it's growth, whether it's love, how we want to show up. So this next breakout session that we're going to enter momentarily is really to invite us all to recognize, as I said at the beginning, that it's not just headspace and mindset. We can, knowing why and doing nothing differently changes nothing. So it's about closing the knowing doing gap. So yes, a construct can be useful, but it's also the emotional aspect. And I think that's really where many of us are starting to feel the strain, is the heart set, not just the mindset. And then the skill sets probably should be plural, is all the things that we can be doing behaviorally to ensure we do many things that even our breakout group talked about: getting exercise, investing in connection, celebrating the time we get with family, loving our pets, including Zoe, who people asking for on the call there, Moshe. So keep bringing the dog pics. all those things are things that we deploy and invest in and build habits of mind, habits of heart, habits of behavior that will allow us to be successful. So as we shift again to reimagination and put on those magic glasses and explore what's possible in the world of work, our prompt for this next go around is there one positive thing that you have done or could imagine doing that could make a significant shift in your impact in your work environment? And again, work not defined by where I'm getting a paycheck, where I'm working in a full-time job. Your work could be completely avocational. You could be a careerist. It could be your community engagement. Work as in your experience of work. So what's this one positive thing that you might be able to do? And again, recognizing some of us are going, I got it, I'm on it. Let me give you, forget one, I'll give you 10. I'm an overachiever. And others are like, I'm not feeling it, baby. So we want to help and mobilize and enlist and recruit the other members of our group to help us if we need the help, or learn from, if appropriate, and have a little short conversation, about 7-8 minutes, I think, on this go around, Moshe.
Yes.
Tracking correctly, on your world of work. So not your personal dimension. We started with that. Leadership is from within, but now in your professional or vocational capacity, however you choose to define work.
Right. So we'll start with new breakout rooms. You'll meet new people and just spend a few minutes on this where everyone has a moment or two to answer the question, and then we'll come back together. So how was that for everybody?
Good.
Great.
Yay, Moshe. Good job.
All right. And if you have any summaries, feel free to add them to the chat window. Razi just mentioned this image you're seeing, Imagine, is a tribute to John Lennon. It's on the ground in, I think you said Central Park,
Yes.
New York, by where he used
Right.
to live.
Yeah.
So that wraps up the second group breakout, where the focus was on work. And regardless of what your work is, the idea that there's good happening and you can choose what to keep. That's part of this whole refresh thing, is looking backwards. The pandemic's over, good things happen, change resulted, even if it was painful, and there's a lot of value in some of that you can choose to hold on to once you identify it. Neville, anything you want to add?
No, so we've just got a couple other thoughts to share with you, and then we're gonna open it up for some Q&A. Again, a reminder, if you do need to leave, because this is your staycation, when you check out, just do leave us a word of how you feel versus when you checked in at 1 o'clock or thereabouts. And so what we want to kind of go to next is a framework of how different ways we could be showing up or experiencing the moment, because we made it somewhat binary in the beginning. It's either, you know, I'm hijacked by my fear brain, or I'm in my creative or alternative self. But actually, there's potentially at least 4 different ways one could be showing up right now. So if you want to advance the slide, Moshe, to the My Life Happens one, that would be yeah, so that's the reminder. If you check out, leave us your one word or thought or phrase, but if not, we're going to go one more. So I found this as a really interesting way to self-reflect on where I find myself at any given moment. So this is kind of evolution, perhaps, or ascendancy from life is happening to me. And this is when Neville is feeling like a victim, when he's feeling like he doesn't have much control, when everything is topsy-turvy. And with victimization and a sense of victimization, real or perceived, there's not a lot of agency. That it's mostly about frustration and despair, and the controls, the helm is at in somebody else's hands. The for me is a shift when you start to realize you do have agency, but you can get a little entitled too. If you think everything has got to work in your favor, like the universe needs to conspire to take care of Neville's every need, which I would accept to be completely unrealistic. But So is it better than being a victim? Probably, but is it optimum? Well, maybe not, because we know that the world is not going to be fair, and there's going to be times when it's not conspiring to be in my best interest. By me, now it really gets to some sense of agency and efficacy, like look ma, no hands, right? So
Yeah.
when those kids are riding their bikes for the first time and they're so impressed with their conscious competence, but they think it's, so the good news is now you have agency. The bad news is it might come with a little bit of hubris. So really the opportunity is to explore how we could potentially get to life is happening through me. And when life is happening through me, it's less about me being the agent of change, but me being the conduit. So I'm almost, the source is not me, but I am, because I'm aligned with, on the right side of history, or elevating humanity, or doing what's in the best interest of the stakeholders, or subordinating my needs to the greater good, or whatever those non-me, not self-based frameworks are, I can still exercise amazing agency and have the capacity to do a lot of change and hopefully a lot of good, but it's not because of my individualness. It's because of my connectedness, again, to your Moshe's ABCs from the Amare wave, the authenticity, belonging, and connectedness, because I have a more authentic and realistic sense of self, because I feel connected to something beyond myself, and because whether those are, values or ways of knowing, that liberates me, not it without having me feel like I'm a victim or I'm in general manager's universe, or all the other previous examples. So we just want to throw that out as another way to maybe instead of stereoscopic lenses, or being at ophthalmologist and saying one or two, you've almost got 4 lenses which you could be observing. Right now I'm feeling pretty victimized. It's all about me apparently. And again, I can now make a choice. Am I able to shift to something beyond that?
And we've all had the experience of being in each of these 4 zones, mindsets, modes of consciousness. And I'm imagining all of you have had the through me, where it's almost magical. Talk about magic glasses and magic dust. It just happens. And you may not even know how or where the inspiration comes from, but there's an effortlessness and an ease that goes with it. That's one way to recognize it. There's no resistance. It's not forcing anything. It's just there. And sometimes it's, holy shit, where did that come from? And that's what I believe most of our wisdom traditions are teaching us and moving us toward. And it's hard to sustain, especially in our culture here, our dominant culture, which is to control. And through me means letting go. There's an aspect of surrender. And ironically, it's from that surrender that comes the freedom and that experience of life is happening through me. And it is awesome. So we hope you'll have many moments of life happening through you, and that this webinar has helped open that a little bit and help you step into that space. We had one more thing we wanted to do.
Before you go there, in our first breakout session, Larry was talking about Michael Singer, who is the author of the Surrender Experiment, which very much speaks to what Moshe is talking about here in terms of reimagining who we are and how we show up. And John in the chat reminded us that there's a difference between a job, a career, and a calling.
Yes.
And sometimes if you're called in service of something greater than yourself, then it's more likely it's going to happen through you, because it's what you're going to choose to do, whether it's not something you're doing to meet your ego needs. It's something you're doing because it's part of who you are, and it brings significance, meaning, and purpose, and hopefully joy and love to your life too.
Yes. And the good thing is there's lots of support for that there's movements like conscious capitalism, and Larry, who you mentioned, has an organization called Spire that advances purpose-driven organizations. There's the Chamber of Purpose. My work with Amari Wave. There's a lot of sources. There's a famous saying many teachings, many teachers, one teaching, many teachers, one teaching. And it all really comes down to this, and that notion of letting go. And this pandemic, man, it really challenges us to do that. But it's in making it as clear as it can be made that we don't have total control, and that if we're willing to do what we can, the serenity prayer, and let go of the rest, that's when life gets good. And speaking of life getting good, we want to appreciate that. Oh, Neville, did you want to speak to this at all?
This was in your invite, and I found this construct very early in the COVID experience, somewhere around late March, early April. And I thought whether it's the 2-4 buy through model, or the am I in fear, am I in learning, or am I in growth? This helps me to recognize, first give it a construct, and then recognize where I am, and then invite myself gently, hopefully lovingly, since we're putting, yes, love has everything to do with this, to my move, ascend, shift from fear into learning, and then ideally from learning into growth. And so over time, hopefully we're all learning more and growing more and fearing less.
Beautiful. All right. So now we have the 3 A's, straight A's: acknowledgement, attention, and appreciation. This is a way to go through life, is recognizing the reality of what is difficult, what is easy, and paying attention to it and not avoiding it. And then really being grateful. If there's one thing that can carry us through hard times, it is gratitude, even for the tiniest things, a little flower growing. Being able to take a breath, whatever it is, there's so much to be grateful for. So you can consider this as a model to stop and acknowledge what's going on, really give it your full attention, your full presence, and feel the appreciation.
And it's very affirming when both the wisdom traditions of 2,500 years ago and the quantum science, neuroscience of the last 2,500 milliseconds land on the same timeless universal principles. So here it's about intention, attention, and attitude, and our ability to shift our intention and be in service of right intention with the right attitude of gratitude, to your point earlier, and then attend to the things that matter most. The law of human behavior is the thing we attend to most manifests. So if we stay in fear, basically, as they say in neuroscience, the neurons that wire together, fire together, wire together, and that you start building conditions, and that becomes your default state. And our job should be then to recognize, since I have some control over that, I'm going to fire and wire and rewire potentially an attitude of gratitude, a love, a service orientation. And when I'm able to do that and turn that behavior into a habit, and that habit into a character, and that character into a destiny, we'll all have done each other service.
Beautiful. And we're getting wonderful comments. Thank you for the chats. Some very heartening about Renee's talking about appreciating the attention of our mind, body, and heart. It's not just intellectual, it's a whole body thing. And Sarah saying she shifted back into through me. Woohoo! Beautiful. So there's a lot of people taking this in, and the more you take in, the more you can give out with that same energy, and that's how it grows. So to wrap up, we want to ask you, what is next? What is next on this magic carpet ride? What one thing do you want to do that will help you stay refreshed, tap back into this energy that we're all in right now of feeling invigorated and inspired? And I'm thinking that some of the early words were anxious and brittle and confused and exhausted. Hopefully that's lifted just a little bit into this space of being connected and open and grateful and all that stuff. And some of you started there, and hopefully all of you are moving toward life happens through me. So to further that, what's one thing you'll do? And you can put it in the chat window if you're willing. One thing you want to take from this and keep. So just take a moment and sit with that. And again, if you like, put it in the chat window, and then in a moment we'll wrap up.
I would even go one step further. It's imperative that you make this commitment to yourself, whether you write it down and share it or not, because otherwise this will be a short duration prophylaxis that for the hour and a half on July 30th served you well, but under stress we revert to habit, and we're all going to be going back to our Zoom fatigue, doom scrolling. So if the shift is going to stick, we need to make a commitment to ourselves right now. And again, I'm not asking to see everybody reveal their commitment, but I'm imploring us all to make that commitment to ourselves because you deserve it. And by sharing it, it kind of puts you on the hook, right? So when I say it out loud, it helps ground me in that commitment. And I would venture to say, again, based on just a few anecdotal examples Moshe shared with us, it inspires others to learn from and make those similar commitments. And yes, Q&A that'll run until 1:30. So for those that, when we wrap this up in the next couple minutes, we'll be happy to stay on and have a dialogue with others that have other questions or want to go deeper. And we will leave you with our emails should you want to have individual conversations separately as well. So
yes, and there's a lot of inspiring commitments in the chat window. You can see slowing down, simplifying life, radiating love, spending more time with friends, being present, watching less news. There's a lot of really good ideas. Smile and breathe. Some very simple ones that are always available to us. Yeah, so good work, everyone. And you might choose an accountability partner who you share this with, someone on this call or someone else in your life, and say to them, here's what I committed to. Help me be accountable for it. Ask me about it tomorrow, next week. So we encourage you to do that. So to wrap up, we really are in this together. And if this pandemic shows us anything, it shows us that. Pandemic doesn't care what we look like or how much money we have or where we are. It's happening. And the good that comes from it is it's a wake-up call, and it invites us to make choices, and hopefully ones that serve us and the broader world, our broader community as well. Neville, anything you want to add as we're finishing up?
I just want to underscore my deep gratitude to you guys for investing in yourselves and making the choice today to, whether it was supporting family members and that was your primary motivation, or supporting yourself as your own family member, just being kind to one another and loving yourself and continuing this investment. If you found our magic glasses and magic dust, magical thinking, let's suspend our disbelief and create our own magical kingdom. It's one of our own making. And if we recognize the choices, some of the choices that we explored together can stick, then I'm confident we're all going to be more resilient and as a result, less prone to stress and burnout. And so I extend my gratitude and support to you guys for making time for yourself today.
And remember the magic, keep it with you. The magic glasses, the magic dust, literally use those as tools. And for today, they're free. For always, they're free. Thank you so much. We're so glad you took time to be with us and participated and stepped into this space. We're here for you. Reach out to us. And it's been wonderful being with you. We'll, as Neville mentioned, we'll stick around and unmute and continue the conversation for whoever would like to. Thanks,
Moshe,
everybody.
Thanks, Moshe, for agreeing to do this.
So can you guys hear me?
Yes, Paul, go ahead.
So what I wanted to say, I hope I can articulate it properly. I've been on lots of Zoom calls. This one was incredibly effective, and it reached me deeply And my thought was, man, this format, what you have created, really needs to go big time. And I don't know how to do it because you two presented this in a magical is not the right word, but in a very, very effective way. And I think if more people heard that, it would be a wonderful thing. I mean, what you two did today was fabulous. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Blessings, Paul. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you. And we did record this. I hope I said that in the beginning. And we can share it so more people get value, but really appreciate your kind words and that's what you felt.
I feel the same. I've done a fair amount of like motivational types of programs and that kind of thing. And there was just something about your essence that you guys had together that really worked. And the breakouts were wonderful. And I feel a lot from what you offered today. And I agree with Paul. I think we really need this kind of thing right now. It will be really helpful for a lot of people. And through Zoom, you can reach so many people. It's wonderful.
Thank you, Sean. Appreciate it. And maybe we'll do more of these and keep growing the community.
Good idea.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Moshe. Thanks, Neville. I agree with Sean. Very effective. The breakouts were great. I really connected with the two groups. For the few minutes, we actually, it was pretty amazing. If you look back at the video, it was kind of remarkable. My first group, we actually played music. So that was pretty interesting, and I enjoyed meeting everybody. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Glad you were here, Hillel. Zoe says she's glad you're here too.
I hope all of us have a doggy in our home with us right now.
Yeah, we're lucky to have this one. Any other thoughts, takeaways?
Maybe I could say this, that I have a daughter who's in college. She's a senior at University of Washington. And I just feel for kids of that age going through this. And I think that things like this will be huge for that generation, with moving forward. And, she's starting a therapy program, which we all need to do at some point in our lives. And right now is very important for kids that age, 21, 22 years old. But this type of program, I think, we really need to reach our young people with this type of thinking right now. So any way that we can reach that group would be significant, I think.
Right. Especially with the limits of socialization, which is so important in unique ways at that age. Yeah, agreed.
I guess I'd like to say that, I really do appreciate this effort to develop this, and I like the way you use the breakout sessions. I do see difficulties and limitations that still have to be overcome. The ability to communicate at greater length with individuals or with smaller groups, but that can all get worked out. So good work. Keep going.
Thanks, John. If anyone has particular suggestions for improvement or things to emphasize, send us an email. Let us know. I'd love to know that.
Hey, Moshe. I just wanted to add that let's talk. We're so synced up on what you did here, and I'm just so excited. It's just a joy. So let's be sure to talk, and I think we'll discover some collaboration opportunities, as always.
Thank you, Renee. I'm glad you were here. And yeah. Renee does incredible work and is building a new company to help more organizations put love to work. She has some extraordinary experiences that she's getting ready to share with the world. So glad you were here, Renee.
Yeah, thank you. Me too. Thanks, Moshe.
Moshe?
Hey, Sam.
Oh, hi. It was a really great presentation. I enjoyed it. Thank you and Neville very much. I just want to ask you if you can briefly expound on, you were talking about something being effortlessly, and when you're surrendering to it, you're really not surrendering, but you're overcoming. What was the source of that knowledge, and in what context do you think that persons can actually express that? In what part of life were you saying? In everything, or in work, or play, or what?
Yeah, that's a big question, Sam. It's a really important one, and
it was an interesting thing you were saying. It was interesting.
Well, yeah, and it's
more about it.
It's counter to conventional wisdom.
Yeah.
Conventional wisdom teaches us to hold on and grip tighter and push through everything, instead of saying it may not be in my greatest good or the greatest good of society for me to do this. Maybe I need to shift directions. Maybe I need to let go. It doesn't mean failing. It just means surrendering, which is, to me, a sign of great strength, not a sign of weakness. An experience that I profoundly remember, this has to do with my daughter Jessa. Jess, I'm not sure if you're on now or not, but Jessa was 5 years old. We were camping. It was a father-daughter camping thing, and we were around Palo Alto at the time, and it was in the middle of the night, and all of a sudden I hear a noise that sounded like a mountain lion. And we're in our tents. I'm next to Jessa. And my first instinct is, we're both in our sleeping bags, is to move over to protect her. So putting my body on top of her sleeping bag. And it felt like the sound was getting bigger and getting closer. And I knew in that moment there was nothing else I could do. And it was an incredible feeling of peace and serenity. To me, that's the kind of surrendering. That's the kind of feeling that happens from ultimately surrendering. And it makes space for whatever's going to happen without any resistance. And we can exercise this in business, in our personal lives. I think the way to do it, to get started, is to recognize when we are resisting. Because whenever we're in resistance, we're typically getting in our own way. And if we let go of resistance through breathing, through meditating, through all kinds of tools and resources, then we make space. So in a way, to me, Sam, it's removing resistance and just making space.
Okay.
And, yeah, that's the best words I have at the moment. But
that answers it. That's good. But now, could you just, now you got everybody curious, finish your story. What was the noise you heard? What was it?
In my mind, it was a mountain lion. In retrospect, almost 30 years later, it might have been someone snoring very loudly. But I'd rather go with the mountain lion.
You're okay.
Yeah. So we'll say, yeah, we'll say the mountain.
Thanks. It was a good answer, Moshe. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anyone else on that topic of getting to that through me surrendering space?
Very interesting.
Anyone else have a story to share on that?
The only thing that I will say is that I feel like for me it's been a journey of coming to find after a lot of journeying, coming to find the thing that I know very clearly is something that I'm here to bring, and that and having such deep peace about that like there's no sense of competition with it, or no sense of I don't know, all the usual trappings that would have been earlier in life, but instead just that this is mine to bring. I'm super clear about it, and every time I say, here's this, And I invite everyone else to bring theirs. People show up and bring theirs, and it's like joyful in the getting the pieces together, rather than, oh well, you know, in an earlier time when that would have been like, well, I don't know, you know, all that's gone, and it is only like expansive.
Beautiful.
That's what I'm holding.
Beautiful. And I call that the energy of love.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, yeah. Thank you, Renee. And everybody, thank you for being here, for being so open and willing to do this together. It's about 1:30. We promised to wrap up. Neville, any final comments?
No, I'm super appreciative of everybody investing their time, energy, headspace, heart space, and I wish you all the best, whatever the future holds for us. We can do this together.
Beautiful. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Moshe. Neville, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Blessings.
Very good.